All right, it is Wednesday, time for our next live webinar in our series, which is all about supporting you during the COVID crisis. I'm very excited today. We are talking all about branding, but branding beyond just your logo. And last week, we had a great conversation with Shai regarding promotions and building promotions that help fill your practice. And the conversation naturally turned to branding. And so, who better to talk with us about branding than our art director, Anne-Louise Wells. Anne-Louise, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Kevin?
Doing really good. Before we jump into the agenda and everything, I always like to start with our sort of roundtable of building isolationships, where I ask you a question and you get to return the favor to me. Yes. I had a question for you, and then I saw that beautiful painting behind you, and I decided, how could I possibly start this without asking you about that painting? So I'm guessing you painted that?
I did paint that. It's actually incomplete. I painted it probably about 13 or 12 years ago, and I've never come to finish it. There's all sections of her hair. I just never got to completing it, but I should. Now that I see it so often now, I should definitely complete it.
No, I don't know. Hairstyles change all the time. Why not just, keep editing it with the times, keep the painting current. And so, yeah, it's your time to ask me a question.
Okay, so my question is, if you were in a rock band or a punk band, what musician would you be? Would you be the bassist, the singer, the guitarist, the drummer, or would you be a groupie?
I would definitely be the singer, because I have very little skills when it comes to playing musical instruments, even though I'd love to. But I would definitely be a country rock, because that is the only type of music that could work for me. So
okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. Anne-Louise, I'm really excited to have you on board with this webinar. We have worked together for many years. Anne-Louise was one of the first people that we were able to bring on board in our agency, and has done an amazing job really structuring and creating our creative department. I want to just remind everyone kind of an offer that we have with Marketing for ECPs. We are a full service digital agency supporting the eye care industry. We have been offering these complimentary website audits over the last few weeks. It's been very popular. If you go to our website, you fill out the form, we do the audit, we contact you, we walk you through it. Really happy to do one for you. We've also created these digital relaunch campaigns. We know that we're now launching, everybody's phasing back in. And so if you want to launch in a very positive way, go to our website, download these, they're free. Anybody can come and take them. We have 11 campaigns that Anne-Louise and her team have created. So please go and do that. I also want to talk about next week. We have 2 webinars next week. One is specifically about becoming a local thought leader, and that's really differentiating yourself in the industry. We have 2 panelists joining us. One is our own Kaya. She is our senior content strategist. And we're also very pleased to say that we'll be joined with Dr. Jennifer Tsai. She's a Manhattan optometrist and has over 150,000 Instagram followers. She's a great speaker, and we're very privileged to have her come on and speak directly to what she does to create her own thought leadership. So that's next week. And directly after that, we also have Never Look Back. So with everything phasing back, we thought now is the best time to bring in 3 panelists from across Canada in this situation. And we have 3 of the brightest and best. We have Dr. Kent Preet, Dr. Wes McCann, and Dr. Kyla Hunter, all talking about how to launch successfully and then safeguard your business for the future. And so that is happening next Thursday. Both invitations for those will be emailed out, or you can go to our website and register. The agenda for today, we're going to talk about why we should care about branding. I think that's really important. We'll talk about branding 101. Anne-Louise, you're really going to walk us through the visual branding and the creative process, and we said beyond the logo, but I think also looking at the logo is important. We're going to talk about transforming your brand with 5 easy steps, and then we're really excited. We are actually going to bring in Doug Reinbold with Women with Vision, and Etnia Barcelona. He's going to come in at the last probably 20 minutes, half an hour, and really talk about branding and why it's important for him. And we'll also be joined with one of our graphic designers, Diana, who is amazing. And together we're going to interview them specifically about a project that they worked on. So we have an amazing next 55 minutes for you. Let's start about this. Anne-Louise, let's talk about why should people care about the term branding in general? Why is it important?
I like your points here. So brand loyalty, brand loyal customers will pay up to 20% more. You'll find the right customers, sales become sustainable, and create a larger barrier of entry for competitors. If I could add to that, I would say brand is why it's important is kind of like if brand was like a family member, and or if brand was like an identity, and you wanted you want to be able to communicate to people, right? So sorry, I'm getting a little nervous. So basically, brand creates legitimacy and it builds recognition. So you wouldn't go ask, like if you had an important question, you wouldn't necessarily go ask a stranger. You would ask someone like your family member or a good friend for advice. So a brand is the exact same thing. It's
sort of what they would say about you, right? It's yeah, absolutely. I know that when it comes to branding, when we look at these points, people are always looking at how can I charge more and get away with it. We're talking about coming out of a commodity type business. And so that first one is, yeah, you can charge a premium price when you have a brand that people trust. And one of the questions we get asked all the time in our agency is, I want to find the right type of patient, the right type of customer. And so creating branding is really letting the world know you exist, what your brand values are, your core values, so that you can sort of match them, right? So I think that's really what these points mean. And, I kind of put the definition here of branding 101, and I'd love to hear sort of your take on this. For me, I think that brand, and we kind of put it in the quotation marks, isn't just the sign on the door. It really is that culmination of every touch point that a business has, right? So it's, do you have some examples of what impacts the brand perception with a company and its customers or patients?
Yeah, so branding is how you portray the whole identity. So from the moment people walk into your practice and, the way that you're welcoming your patients and the way that, what type of music is playing, the decor, the mood that you're creating, to what you're doing online should all match, like that consistency. But it's really everything. It's not just your logo. It's that personality and how defined and specific it is. Like the more defined and specific it is, the more people will remember you, because it's very clear who you are, and then you create that familiarity.
Yeah, and I think it also comes from, brand is everything from what does your website say, what's the big image you're using, how do you answer your phone, the voicemail you may leave, what's the sign, what is the Spotify playlist that might be going on when somebody walks in, what is the overall, like even just the decision to use halogen lighting, the decision to offer dry eye or vision therapy, all of these things, every touch point you possibly have an impact on the culture and on branding. And I even put in here, like, beyond just your customers, we're also talking about branding is how you treat employees and how you treat vendors and partners. And so it's all of that. That's sort of your culture and what you build. And I think Doug's going to talk a lot about culture later, but to me, brand is that how you interact in every way, whether they hear about you or whether they're visiting your actual physical location, right?
Exactly. It's how you look, it's how you speak, it's everything.
Cool. And I do want to take a second and thank Johnson & Johnson as well. They have been a tremendous partner for us. They are one of the strongest brands in the eye care industry. Obviously, with the AccuView brand, it is one of the top 3 or 4 most well-known brands that does exist globally when it comes to eye care. And so they've been a tremendous partner in helping us sort of create these and helping us kind of guide a lot of the content. So I'd like to say thank you to them. Anne-Louise, you have sort of created a little bit of a presentation here for the visual branding. And I think that's important to dive into and talk about representing your brand in a visual way. So can you sort of comment on the importance of visual branding?
Yeah, so visual branding is the opportunity to take all those touch points that we're talking about and translate it visually and it's just easier often for people to absorb, is knowing what it looks like visually. So it's very, very important and we work really hard, and I'm excited to actually teach everyone here how we do that, or how you can do that yourself. But understanding what elements that you need to take into account to create visual branding is very interesting. So I'm excited to share this.
And this is an interesting slide, because in the background here we have sort of two brains. You have one which is the colorful and bright, and then the other one that looks like it's a mathematician sort of puzzle brain. I'm guessing this is not by accident. So
No.
Give us a little bit of the slide, sort of the visual context that we're looking at.
Yeah, so I chose this because I felt like there's part of this that's very creative. So the creative brain and the analytical brain, they come together. So creating your visual branding and really like that whole creative process that I go through, it's not just picking out colors like you would imagine. There's a lot of thought and insight that goes into it. And so I kind of wanted to show that. So it kind of starts off like the two brains are split apart. And then as you notice, you'll notice the parts that are more analytical, the parts that are more creative, and then how at the end they kind of come together. So it's kind of like a subliminal visual in the background there.
So, we're going to talk about the creative process, because I'm guessing that creativity doesn't just come to you and you just, decide to sit down and all of a sudden you're hit with inspiration. So, can you explain to us and to anyone who's thinking about really defining what their brand is visually, what is that creative process that you go through, and what others can do at home to sort of come to that conclusion of what their brand visualization should be?
Right. So all these next slides are kind of talk about that. So just to start it off, in this presentation, I think we'll be talking about two different creative processes. One of them is to enhance your existing branding. So when Diana and Doug Reinbold jump on, that's really going to be what they talk about, is how we enhanced their branding. And then the other type would be when you're building a brand from the ground up. So what do I do for that? What's my process for that? And that's what I'll be talking about first, is how to create your full branding.
Okay, well, I think that's a great place to start. So now we're really talking about somebody that might be either a cold start, or, and we see this a lot, is they've decided they need to rebrand for whatever reason. They're creating a new image, they're creating a new, either its name, or they're completely they're keeping the name, but creating a whole new brand concept. So yeah, walk us through sort of the process here of what you would go through and what people can go through at home.
Excellent. So you'll see this triangle here, and I make fun of myself a little bit, but I call this the trifecta because it's just a good way to remember it. There's three really important persons when you're creating a brand that you have to account for. And the first one is you, who you are. And so I'll walk you through the creative consult. I'll go deeper into that so that you know what kind of questions you should be asking yourself and looking at in order to determine who you is, like what your goals are for your brand. And then the next one would be your target. So your target demographic. So we do demographic research. And so finding out who you're looking to target and what's out there. So I'll go deeper into that. And then the third one would be your competitors. So who are you up against? That's really important to know as well, so that you can differentiate yourself. So all of these three together creates a very informed brand concept.
Okay, so you said we're first diving into the creative consult, right?
Yes. So this,
all right.
Okay. Yeah, so this creative consult, these are all the types of questions that we ask. You'll see the creative brain. The creative brain is what is showing on this slide, because I feel like when we get to know you, we ask questions and we're trying to really get you to talk about your passion. You're building this business for a reason. And so really pinpointing, like your mission, your core values, your experience of, we talked about this earlier, is like the experience of like walking into the office, and then the online experience, like what you're hoping to achieve with your online experience, and then what sets you apart from your competition. All of these things are things that you should be asking yourself about. And when we hear you talk about that, we start to visualize what we're going to do with your brand. We start, like, the creative brain is open, and we really ask open-ended questions because we want to hear you talk about it from like kind of like, like your whole definition of why you started your business. So when we look at photographic appeals, just so I can define that a little bit, and that's to see like, are you looking to do authentic photography, or are you looking to do more of, using stock photography to complement your brand, or a combination of both? So each, so those are the kinds of questions we really want to know. So it really goes beyond, we talked about beyond the logo. That's like the title of this presentation. We really ask questions like, we want to know everything about your business, because that tells us who you are, and that helps us define your brand and your brand identity.
So, this might be difficult for some. A lot of our audience right now are doctors, and maybe not the most creative type, right? So for them, and maybe this is maybe me more the skeptic, you're telling me that by telling me about the online experience or the in-person experience I'm going to have, you can start visualizing what that should actually look like from a graphic standpoint. It's interesting to kind of take that leap. And so what I'm hearing you say, and what I want to kind of touch on, is all of these things we talked about at the beginning, the way you answer your phone and who you are as a business, why did you start, the goals, all of that can be and should be reflected in the overall look and feel of the brand. Can you tell, in your experience, when you walk into a company, that there's brand disconnect, and how does that make you feel when you walk into a place and you say, that wasn't what I was expecting, both positively and negatively? But how do you feel about the brand disconnect that might exist with certain companies?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, for example, like if you've gone on their website and you had like such a certain feel, and it kind of made you connect with their brand, and then you walk into their doors and, oh, it's not as welcoming, or the colors aren't the same, it's not the same mood, it creates a bit of a disconnect, and especially because you kind of got attached to that initial branding, and this is why you chose them, and then all of a sudden you walk in and it's not the same. It can be a little disappointing. So it's definitely something that we want to match that mood. So by choosing certain imagery that reflect, like let's say your keywords are like, we want to be friendly, we want to be approachable, we want to have like a level of energy, like a high vibration. Okay, so then I'm going to select imagery and colors and these types of things that kind of coordinate with that. So each kind of color and imagery can have that definition in itself. So, and so when we're selecting images, we're kind of looking at that. We're looking at, okay, is that giving me the same feeling? So you have to be really connected with your emotions when you're designing, and you're kind of incorporating that, all of these values that you've learned about this potential client. So.
Interesting. And so what about demographics? And we talked about, you want to create a brand that attracts the right type of customer, the right type of patient. What goes into your process when it comes to targeting the right demographic?
Right. So there's different aspects. Definitely knowing who you're looking to attract is really important, because you want to know, you want to see, like, is it possible to attract these people? Are they even in your area? So, we have to be realistic. Often there is opportunity, and there's lots of opportunity, and we just have to kind of find it. But, having empathy also, like in regards to demographic, I added this word into the presentation like last minute, because I feel like knowing what your clients want and really empathizing with what kind of treatment they would like, or what kind of special experience they're looking for, can really help with targeting your demographic as well. And then looking at the landscape. So sometimes when we're preparing for a consultation with a client, we are looking at, we're looking at Google Maps, and we're looking at what does the housing looks like? What do the neighborhoods look like? Are they affluent? Is there different kinds of neighborhoods around the area? Like, is there an opportunity to attract more affluent or more middle class? Like, what are we really looking at? And then we also look at census to see, what are the age groups? What is the cultural diversity? what is the economic state? So we look at all of these things so that when we actually have our consultation with you, we have an idea of what's around you. And so if you mentioned that, we really want millennials, but millennials might be hard to target in that area, we can always discuss that and see how we can balance these things out. And that really is reflected in the type of imagery that we end up choosing. And sometimes we find out, hey, there's an opportunity for something that, we didn't even that wasn't even thought of. Like you could be attracting students and you didn't know. So there's an opportunity there. So we try to do a bit of research beforehand.
Interesting. So, you're talking a lot about what the website looks like and feels like and what have you. I think the big important part of this is that question of, I want to attract more of this type of person, and not so much who I'm attracting today. It's where do you see, what does success look like for you in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah.
What do you want the average patient, value to be, or the average customer value to be? Do you want them buying 1 pair or 2 pairs of glasses? Do you want them to be contact lens wearers? Are you doing medical specialization? There's all these different things. And so kind of going back to what your main image and your brand is are you building it to attract the target demographic and not just the people you're seeing today and trying to kind of keep in that box?
Exactly.
I think that's important. What about competitors? So we know what you're doing, but you said earlier in this slide that perhaps there's an opportunity that isn't being served. There's something you could be doing in your business that others aren't. So where does competition come into the process?
Right. So the competitive analysis is probably the biggest part of this, because you really want to know who you're up against. Because if you're doing the exact same thing as the next person, why would someone come see you and not the other? And that talks about the barrier that we were talking about earlier and that Shai mentioned also in the last webinar, is that, the more that you're unique and the more you're able to set yourself apart or offer something that no one else is offering, you'll attract, people want to feel like they belong to something. And so if you're able to create that kind of like clout, that's really important. So you really got to know who's in your area, what are they doing, what's different about them, so you'll see here like the analysis metrics. So by analyzing all of these things, I'm able to see like where they stand, because we really try to live up to these points. So if they're not living up to them, well, obviously there's more opportunity for you, but it's also figuring out, what you want to do and evaluating all of these things and making sure that, yes, the direction I want to go, or maybe we need to rethink, like you maybe need to add a little something just to really make you different.
Yeah, interesting. And I've seen you do some of these competitive analysis before, and I've even seen you just visualization, like on a sheet of paper, you'll list the main competitors and you'll look at themes, that everybody else is using blue. Everybody else is using this type of font. Everybody is using this. Yeah. And so you sort of, what has stood out to me is that you've presented me with like, this is a cluster of what the industry is doing. And if you are wanting to stand out and really differentiate yourself, this is the recommendation we're making, because it's bold and it's different and it's going to attract, this cluster is attracting the same type of demographic. There's a whole other demographic here that's looking for something else.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, you've created a slide about top 4 competitors. Why 4, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Right. Why 4? So I think 4 gives you a good idea, like, top 4. So you probably have more than 4, but the top 4 are the ones that like are showing up the most. I think that'll give you a really good idea of like your biggest competitors. And so analyzing those top 4 is what is necessary. But part of this analysis, we also look at more than 4. But to start off, we definitely kind of try to define those. So we look at, sometimes we will ask you, like, who do you think your competitor is? So I'll look at that one. I might not use it for my competitive analysis, depending on if I see that someone is actually probably a bigger competitor than you might not know about. And so, yeah, so then when we go into the metrics here, we look at, the brand longevity. We look to see how unique the name is.
And that means, I just want to go into that. Brand longevity means how long has your current brand been established, and how is that important? Before just rebranding or changing anything, I think it's also important to look at how established that is, because the longer it's been established, really the more risk that's presented to you. And so it's important to weigh all that and put that kind of in the consideration bucket.
Yeah, so you'll see that in the next points. I kind of break all of these down, but that's definitely important, Kevin. Like, if yeah, so brand longevity. So, if they've been like in business for 2 years versus the other guy that's been in business for 15 years, 15 years, they probably have built some recognition. So they're a bigger competitor in that sense. So definitely want to look at that. And then for the next one, right. So how unique the name is. So this kind of speaks for itself, but does it match the industry? Is it memorable? I'm kind of going backwards. I tend to do that. Does it create a visual in your mind? Does it roll off the tongue? Does the name pique your curiosity? So overall, is the name like relevant to the industry is what is probably the biggest point here, because if it's, it could be a really great name, but if it has nothing to do with the industry, you're creating confusion. So you want to be pretty clear with that. And actually, yeah, go
like
ahead.
if you were to create if you create a totally unique name, while it's memorable and it can be a brand strategy, it costs more money to associate what the name is with what you do.
Yeah.
Whereas when you come up with a name that does match either geography or location, then it's more obvious. And so it's sort of, again, weighing all that out is who is your personality? What can people expect when they come there? Do you want to have the obvious name, or and I we see a big transformation from doctor what have you's office, optometry, to more of a more of a unique name. And of course, with opticians, we see just a wide array of various names and interesting and unique names as well.
That's true. Yeah. So it's good to kind of be a little different, I would say, but not being irrelevant is probably what we look at the most. And then is the logo robust? So is the more simple the design is, the more memorable it will be. Because you got to think, like, people aren't sitting there staring at your logo for hours. They glance at it. So if it's too complex, it might just like go over their heads. You want to have something simple and symbolic, and then unique brand colors. So you want to see what are the other colors the competitors are doing. So I have a slide later on that really is visual and shows what this is, and again, reflective of the industry, and does it match your name. And then for the next slide, so this one's really important. So because often what we're doing here is we're designing a website. So we want to see what your competitors are doing for a robust website. So what you want to look about your competitors is this first point, like, is it aspirational? Does it evoke emotion? So how you're going to create that brand is like, it's a relationship, right? You're creating a relationship with your customers. And so there needs to be some emotion in that. So when we're designing websites, we're really trying to, like, when we like pick out the imagery, we want that, like, like when you see a beautiful website and you have that feeling, we try to recreate that. It's really important. And so I'm looking to see if your competitors are doing that as well. And then unique brand design of the site. So is it something modern? Is it unique? Page flow, user experience is super important.
Because so part of the branding of a website is also being different than everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think we've had that as a common theme over these last few weeks, is that when you have a similar site and everyone has, the same photos, the same images, your brand is just lumped in with everybody else's. And so a big part of brand strategy is just having a unique brand. But, we talk about consistency, and I think that's also important to say what you see on the website is reflected in the store. I think we have an excellent example coming up with Doug later, but we have brand consistency with what you're seeing on the sign and what you're seeing on the website matches what's happening. It's kind of when the audio matches the video is sort of the way to say brand consistency.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good comparison. Yeah, consistency, like out of everything that you're looking at, you got to look at, like, social media. What are your competitors doing? Are they, does it look the same as the website? Is it the same experience as when they come in the doors? That consistency is what will create recognition. So it's very, very important. And
cool. And we have an example that I think you're going to walk us through. And this one is actually outside the industry, so it's not optical, or it's not eye care or eyewear. It's actually medical aesthetic. We had somebody local come to us and ask us to create a website. And can you just walk us through a little bit of you sort of have a case study here. Can you kind of walk us through, I guess, maybe the first one, the evaluation with competitive analysis with them?
Right. So once you do this whole competitive analysis, like visually, this is how it looks. So this allows me to see like, so everyone starts off for every point, they have like 10 points. And then as they're not hitting the mark, I remove the points. And so then you can see here, you know, I have a picture of their interior. I have a picture of their logo and their website and how it works on different screens. So this allows me to really see, okay, visually, this is what's going on. And I kind of create a summary. And this really, then I know where the opportunity is. Their brand consistency is probably the lowest. So, and this is what I was talking about, like when we're looking at colors. So when we have all of your, what we do is we collect all of the competitors. So here I probably have like, I think I have 12. So 12 different competitors. Take the screenshot of the first image, because the first image is the first impression. It defines your brand the most, or it should anyways. And so you can see who is doing what in the industry, what colors are repeating, what kind of imagery is repeating. And so here I've been able to create a color palette that describes kind of like what everyone's doing in the industry. And I build a color palette off of that to make sure that it's unique and that it's still relevant to the industry, but it's not what everyone else is doing.
So what I'm hearing is there's a lot of strategy, a ton of strategy. This isn't just sitting down at a computer or sketchpad and deciding, okay, this is what we're going to go through. You're really taking a lot of inputs, and the inputs from you know, the decision maker, the businesses, the external factors, which is competitors, it's the environment, it's the demographics, competitors, all of that kind of comes in, and that's sort of what the process is in creating, which is interesting. So I guess the advice here, the strategy is anybody looking at their current brand or looking at revamping, it requires a process. It requires these types of conversations and this type of research to really dig in so that you're confident in what you're going to come up with on the other end, right? Yeah. So I guess that's really what the whole informed brand concept idea is, right? It's taking that creative process, but also the factual inputs and coming together to form a really strong creative process for a strong result.
Exactly.
So Iconic Beauty was the aesthetics company that you worked with. So you did a competitive analysis, and this, I guess, is the logo that you came up with?
Yeah, I mean, the inputs that we get out of the creative consult really inform what the brand is going to be. We're just making sure by doing all this analysis that we can do it, or if there's additional opportunity, or if we need to sway a bit in a different direction if someone else is doing the same thing as you. So this client really wanted to have kind of like an editorial approach and kind of have like that magazine look and feel. And there's definitely opportunity for that. So that's where we went. And this kind of shows, go ahead, Kevin.
So this is the main website image then. So this is what we're looking at. Is when someone comes to a website, it really does not look like a website. It looks like a magazine cover. And so when they told you they wanted it to be that magazine spread, this is sort of what you took. And obviously the logo looks very classic. The model looks classic. It looks kind of like timeless, but there's something about throwback, you know, which I guess ties in with the name of the icon.
Exactly. And it's breathtaking. Like that's always important to us, is like, can we take your breath away? Can we do a design that's going to like, wow, you know? So we're always trying to achieve that. I pointed out this image here just because this client so we talk about like the consistency between visiting the site and visiting the practice. So in her practice, every room has different wallpaper. And so in order to capture that, I created these little frame elements that kind of show different wallpaper textures just to kind of bring in that personal touch. And that personal touch is usually what will really define a brand visually. Wow.
So that's sort of what the audio matches the visual or the video, because they come to the website, they get a first impression. This is what I'm going to experience. And then when they actually walk into the practice, it's matching, and they're being able to build that brand consistency. Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, thanks for the visual side. I'm going to kind of just take the reins for a little bit and go through 5 tips that I have found works from a strategy perspective. So beyond the visual side, and this looks great, I want to talk about beyond just the graphics, and then we're going to bring in Diana and Doug. Number 1 to me is be unique. And I think that's the first big strategy step in transforming a brand, is being unique. You know, when things that you rarely hear in the market, and Louise, is like, I bought my car because everybody drives that car. Or I chose this engagement ring for you, honey, because it's the same one I've seen on many women around. Or here's my wife, I married her because she's just like every other woman I ever dated, right? Those are things you just don't really hear. And so in our industry, the things you don't want to hear is I chose my optometrist because they're really close to my house. Or, I love that optician. They sell the same glasses as everybody else. Or I love this brand. It's the cheapest one I could find. And so when you look at those three things, nobody wants to be associated with that. So create sort of a uniqueness that people can define who you are. Oh, that's the practice that does this, right? And you really stand head and shoulders as being unique. The other one is knowing your intangibles. And I think about cars, a car manufacturer in this case, and every car right now has a backup camera. They have heated seats. They have all those things you used to pay more for. So why are people paying for a premium brand like a BMW or a Mercedes? And a lot of it comes down to the feeling you get when you get inside the vehicle. And that's the feeling. It's trying to capture that brand feel, that emotion, and creating a brand around it. And so what I recommend in this case is with your staff, even sending a survey out to your existing customers or existing patients, a survey monkey with one word, and say, give us one word that describes your experience when you walk into our business. And then building a word cloud around that and saying, okay, our brand is this today. What do we want the brand to be? And what do we need to shift in the business in order to actually attribute the right words, the right word cloud of what we're trying to create? The next one's focus. And I don't know if you're like me, and Louise, you've worked with me for many years. It's something I struggle with is focus. And it's when you try to do too many things and be too many things to too many people, it's hard to be known for what you're the best in the world at. And I think, Jim Collins has this great book, Good to Great, in that concept of the hedgehog, which is what can I be the absolute best in the world at? And when you become the best in the world at something, then you're known for it and people will pay more for it and they're going to search you out. And competitors don't really want to come at you because, how many people want to create a soft drink company right now? Or how many people want to create a running shoe company to try to battle Nike? And so when you create focus and you become the best in the world at something, even in your area, when I say the world, I really mean your world, in your geographic area, then that really helps. Consistency, I think, is the other one, is once you define all of these things, ensuring that every day that you're living and breathing your brand values. And so, when I show you a picture like this, right away that you're going to get a McDonald's cheeseburger, and what company makes that hamburger because it's consistent. That when you go to Disney, you're going to get an out of the world, over the top, Disney experience. And consistency also means that when you go to IKEA and you buy furniture, that you are going to look like this, because that is how I look every time I have to build a shelf for my wife. So knowing that there is a consistent brand feeling and emotion tied with a brand is really important. I think, the other one is authenticity. It's understanding who you really are. And so if you are a fashionable person, it makes sense to carry fashionable frames. If you are someone that has only really worn black rectangle frames your entire life as a business owner, and you don't have anybody around you that is fashionable, it's tough to say you're in the fashion game. And at the same time, if you are high tech, then make sure that all the equipment is high tech and you're carrying the most, you're investing in R&D, and you're partnering with companies that can leverage what you stand for in innovation. And even the frames you decide to carry and the contact lens company you decide to partner with, and every brand that you also carry, every product, service, and brand inside your business is a representation of your brand. And so really consider who you're partnering with and what it speaks to your customers to say, I carry this brand. So that's really my 5 tips. But you and I are kind of theorists. Like we will tell you theory. I really want to and excited to bring in Doug, who is going to kind of explain firsthand. So Doug, welcome to the webinar.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad you started off the little talk about your hair, because I will mention mine. As you notice, it is braided because it's really long and I haven't been able to get to a barber. And I got up this morning and I was really excited about being on here. And I said to my wife, man, I said, with this braided hairdo, I feel like I want to call up my buddy Ragnar Lothbrok from Vikings and go take over something. And I was pumped, and she said, "Yeah, well, you might want to take off the tie-dye jean jacket and the blue glasses." And it kind of took me down a little bit, but it also woke me up a little bit too. Well, I guess one of the things I want to say is basically uncertainty is where new happens, and we are in that time right now. And I think one of the points I'd really like to make moving forward is what about this situation is right? So we're gonna just sit back at the end of this and really pick what about all of the stuff that we're going through and doing with you guys is right. So that's kind of where we'll start. So if you have any questions,
Cool.
you can.
Yeah, and you know, I missed the intro, so I apologize for that. Doug jumped right in and talked about your great hairstyle, which you definitely do. And I see you've avoided the bootleg haircut.
I did.
As I have as well. Doug, great. So just for everyone that may not know you, you are a partner in MDO Opticians. You are the founder of Women with Vision Opticians, and you are part of the management team of Etnia Barcelona. And you are one of the most memorable people that I've ever met. I came to you're based at Edmonton and surrounding areas, and I came to do a talk, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. And I remember those blue glasses. You wore them that day. You stood out as somebody just watching. And so when we were thinking about brand, there was, to me, there's the brand of the business, which you've done an excellent job, but it extends, a lot of that is your brand. And I think you have such a memorable brand, and anybody that knows you would agree with that. So what is branding to you? What does it mean to you, and why is it important?
Well, I think you've covered it really well so far, but one of the things that helps us do is obviously it sets us apart from the competition, and it really helps our clients know what to expect. And I think one of the things we do really well with the branding is it's important for us to connect to our customers emotionally, especially now with this distancing. That would definitely be some of the lead reasons it's important to us.
What have you noticed? Like, how would you define your brand? Just without anyone seeing anything first, how would you define what your brand is?
Disruptive in a nutshell. Cool. We are absolutely disruptive, and there's really only 3 ways that you can achieve that. And number 1, you got to be it. Number 2, you need to bridge it, because a lot of people aren't ready for what we are when they first walk in the door. And then in the end, you just have to really niche it. So those 3 things would basically get us to our disruptive nature, all with a very professional attitude towards the industry.
So have you always been disruptive? Like, is that always been your, kind of MO?
Well, I went from the RCMP working undercover to being a makeup artist. That was when I realized I might be a little different. So yes, it is my nature. It was my mom's nature, my dad to a degree. But yeah, I always wanted to do things differently.
And what does different mean to you? So we've talked today about an opportunity in the market. It sounds sort of like when you say disruption, when you say do things differently, what do you do tangibly? Like, let's say I was to come work for you tomorrow. I'm in your training program. What are you telling me that is different, that is attributed to your brand, so that when somebody walks into this business, this is what they can expect?
Well, I think we always walk a tightrope between vulnerability and conviction, and we kind of really hang on to the old ways of doing things. And a lot of people are afraid to take risks. So to give you an idea, if you were walking in, because of my ex-police background, I used to be a profiler. So we do profile our clients. We greet them differently. There's not the traditional way of a greeting, but if you're sitting down looking for eyewear, we have a very in-depth profile system that are based on belief systems, behaviors, habits, and life experience. So you, Kevin, walking in the door, what's the best way to buy glasses? Well, it's probably been how you've always done them, or the best way to poach an egg. So out of your belief systems, you're going to have a behavior. So you're either walking to the frame bars or how can I help you? And it's like, well, I'm just looking for new glasses. Well, okay, the men's are over there, the women's are over there. If you need me, my name's Doug. We don't do that. We're very engaging, because when you have this behavior and you repeat it, it becomes a habit. All your habits in life will give you your life experience, and life experience comes back to belief systems. So the only way we can interrupt your belief system on how to choose eyewear or multiple pairs is to introduce new behaviors. And that's where we start. So when we build that profile, it looks like we're just having a casual conversation. It's very engaging, it's humorous, but it allows us to build that food pyramid, so that basically there's no way out. Our close rate's over 90%. We're pretty happy about that.
That's awesome.
Wow. Okay. So what I'd like to do is, and it's interesting that you said profiling. It's not interrogating, it's profiling. So
Absolutely
totally
not interrogating.
Probably equally intimidating, I think, if anyone's being profiled.
Yeah.
I would like to bring in Diana, and Diana is one of our graphic designers and has been with us many, many years as well. The reason I brought Diana is because she was the one that actually worked on sort of your website design, which we have not launched yet. It's sort of in a staging link, but we're going to share a little bit with you today to sort of show you the creative process between the two of you. And I think what I'd like to do is concentrate on, Doug, sort of the strategy behind the business, and then Diana, how you incorporated that into an actual design of a website. So you can, the idea of this for the audience is to see the process of how this can sort of, how it can work together. So what I'm going to do is share my screen here and your kind of website in staging. Okay. I'm having a little bit of issue there. Doug, can you maybe talk a little bit, or Diana, a little bit about the your creative consult that you had originally? And I'm going to pull this up.
Well, with Diana, one of the first things that I like, because I really believe that culture is in your genetic code, and it starts at the very top. It's the fabric of your company, and it's always shaped by your visions, your values, your purpose, and then obviously your belief system. And I think Diana and the team were actually amazing in getting that from Jackie and I, and also the rest of the team. So she really understood how important it is, because with, I call it the genetic code. A caterpillar and a butterfly's got the same DNA, but they found a way to express that. You just express differently. So I think we were a little more of a caterpillar. She got her DNA, and then we expressed it into something different. So it was really a pleasure for the first time in a long time working with someone that got what we were trying to do.
That's really nice of you, Doug, to say that. I also remember when we were doing the consultation with you, understanding you guys, I asked you to do a consult with me. What if I was a customer and I were to walk into your store? Like, how would I get treated? Like, what are the questions you would ask me? And you walked me through the whole process. And I don't even wear glasses. By the end of the consultation I had with you, I wanted to buy glasses. Like, why do I feel this way? So, I really understood what you guys stood for. And I understood that you're very personable, very unique, and I wanted to capture all that in the design.
So I love all that. Let's talk about what we're looking at here, which is the main hero image. We heard Anne-Louise talk about earlier, that main image is really important. So, between the two of you, this is a very distinct image. We have diversity, we have very unique frames. What are we trying to say here? How are we connecting the image with the audience?
For me, when I started designing this, it was more about diversity, inclusiveness, and welcoming people. And so women with vision, they are very, very personable, very unique, and they don't discriminate anyone, like based on their class or level of income. They want to appeal to everyone, and they want to cater to everyone's need. And we wanted to capture that, and that's one of my inspiration to the design we have. All the photographs used in this website is provided by women with vision, because they do their own photography. The models are their own clientele. So it's very customized, very unique, and it speaks to their brand.
I agree. I think one of the things with our brand is you've captured well. We really wanted to create a sense of community because it's not just about the products. We want them to feel like they belong to kind of an elite club. And even within our company, we have something we're called the Glasses Geeks, and we kind of have a cool little dress code that goes with it. But I think you captured that well. Having a sense of community for us is huge.
And so interesting that you provided custom photography here, Doug, and I'm looking at a photo here, very kind of bold and different. Can you tell us a little bit about the philosophy of the design of your practice?
Yeah, it goes back a little bit to that belief system. So what happens is, you've probably all heard the old story about how you mimic people's behavior. So, if they're sitting like Diana is like that right now, if you do that, they're more comfortable. So what we try to do is, in today's world, you've got this thing in front of you that everybody is so overwhelmed and inundated that we tried to do a couple of different things. Was match their psychology when they come in, and we found the clientele in St. Albert to be a little bit more busybody. So we designed the store to be a little bit more visually busy because that tend to relax. And when we did our remodel, the staff was blown away, and the comments we got for the next 2 months was, I can't believe how relaxed everybody is coming into the new store. So we try to make it fun. We try to have a little bit of a busyness. Now with Women with Vision, it's a little bit more mellow. It's a little bit more laid back. And I would say it's a little bit more personal. Then MD tends to be a little bit busy because we have an optometrist there. So we designed the stores to kind of mimic people's psychology and where we wanted to direct them moving forward.
Interesting. And so you have all of these bold, kind of bright colors. And Diana, maybe tell us about how your process of trying to make sure that that's why do you think it's important for us to capture that, and sort of how you integrate and wove that into sort of the design of their website, which will eventually go to everything, right? From collateral to maybe advertising to videos. How do you weave it into kind of the fabric of their brand?
A lot of our inspiration that goes into strategy comes from the practice interior, taking into account a lot of the client's personality. In this case, you're looking at these photos and you already see a lot of similarities, even though they are quite different from one another. There are a lot of patterns, there are a lot of wood textures, there are a lot of interesting elements. But when we bring it into a website, we don't want to showcase every single element. We want to find a common ground. For example, the very first photograph with the little froggy wearing eyeglasses, you see a table right in front of it. It has a lot of those colors. And then the fourth photograph on the right side, it also has a painting. It has the similar colors. And then overall, they have a lot of wood textures in the practice. So what I did was I found a texture and kind of edited to make it to appeal to the brand. So I have the wood, the colors, the textures, everything in one little piece. So you can see that behind this section right here. So when we have that, it kind of takes it further because it's not just going to work for one thing. We're thinking in long term, the big picture. How can we convert this brand to go on different media without breaking the branding aspect of it? So that's where the elements comes into place.
And what I love too, just even about this image here, is you have different ages represented, you have different genders, you have different race, and that really does speak to diversity. And what I see a lot of times is we use very similar stock photography, which shows the same people. It's a very similar looking family, and this really does speak to a wide diverse of people, which says to me, Doug, that I'm welcome, regardless of size, shape, and what have you. I'm welcome into your store, and I'm going to feel comfortable, and that you have the style to match me. And that's what it tells me. It also tells me that I'm probably going to get a unique experience. I'm probably going to receive unique frames, and judging by the age group that I'm looking at, I also don't think that it's going to just completely, break the bank for me. So is that fair to say in terms of what you're trying to create and the first impression that you're trying to create?
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying to create an experience, an atmosphere that first is very comfortable, that's very connective. It kind of encourages the people to hang out and linger, and then obviously keep coming back, hopefully with a friend. You've got to create a compelling story around this, your store, and we tell a lot of stories. And it's just important. It's that connective part, right? Because talent is everything in your team, man. Especially in a time now when a crisis hits, you quickly get to see who's your best.
Cool. We are getting a question here. What's the dress code for?
Okay, so what we have is we have glasses geeks, right? That's what everybody was calling us in town. So because I'm with Etny, I'm literally in hundreds and hundreds of offices all the time. So what Glasses Geeks is we have somebody who's very talented, who shoots all our pictures, comes up with these things. And Glasses Geeks, everybody's got a different body, but basically we all have like matching running shoes, can be jeans with a nice top, with different hoodies, different t-shirts that actually says Glasses Geeks on it. We have pictures up around the store of models that we did with Glasses Geeks. That's done 3 days a week where everybody has to be in their Glasses Geek rig. Then on Fridays, it's called Everybody Does Casual Friday. We call it Fancy Friday. So Fancy Friday, we have staff come in with their grad dress. We've had them come in with their old bridesmaid gowns. I might be in a suit. But it's a day that we dress up, and it's kind of a very eclectic dress up day. And frankly, it's probably one of our most noticeable and fun days we have. And then Saturdays, we allow individualists, let your own personal style shine through within the context of our culture.
Great. We have a new question that says, did you build the brand first and extend that into the design, or did you come up with a crazy design and then decide how do we have to match that?
No. You know what? I have no formal education in this. And basically, I came up with an idea of the store. The MDO acronym came from a combination of my mom, who started in the business, and it morphed into something different. So basically, it's me standing with an 8x11 sheet of paper with crayons, and I stand in one corner, then to the next corner, then to the next corner. Fortunately, I have a carpenter who's amazing and gets what's going on in my head. And we also want to make it changeable so that everything can be moved around. Women with vision, when we first opened, people thought we were nuts to have an optical exclusively for women. I'm really happy we were that nuts. You have women's shoe stores. You got every kind of other business for women. Why not for eyewear? After about 6 years, the critical mass, brothers, sisters, whoever that had a male wanted to bring them. So we don't really market it aggressively, but we do have men's stuff there now. So I would say that the design of the store definitely was a work in progress. It wasn't something that we put down on paper. I changed stuff almost daily. Instinct.
Awesome. Well, I want to take a second and just thank you, Doug, and Diana for joining us, for joining both Anne-Louise and I. A huge inspiration. I think you did a great job capturing that uniqueness. I know the website will be live, shortly. We just didn't kind of beat it to this. We still have some finishing touches, but what a great time to really just showcase the process. For us, I do want to just close out by 3 things. One is we do have that complimentary website audit. You go to our website, marketing4ecps.com. Our team will do an audit about, throughout your website, and then we can review it together. We book that meeting. We do have these digital relaunch campaigns. So for anybody that is now saying, okay, we're ready to launch, I need some support. These campaigns are free. Go to our website, download them. You can have them instantly. We also have 2 webinars next week to close everything out. We have Become a Local Thought Leader, with our own Kaya, who's our senior content strategist, as well as Dr. Jennifer Tsai, who has built up an online following of over 150,000 Instagram followers. They will share their experience on what you can do to both build an online presence and create thought leadership. We also have the Never Look Back. So knowing that we are phasing back in, we will hear from three kind of esteemed colleagues from across the country about everything from practice management to finance to HR and all those things that we, that we need to consider when relaunching our business. So I would like to thank Johnson & Johnson for their support. As always, they are a fantastic partner in this digital series. And of course, Anne-Louise, thank you very much for your time today and sharing your expertise in your process. And I know sometimes it can be tough to come away from the day of designing and being creative to share expertise. So thank you very much for that. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Diana. And thank you everybody for taking an hour of your day to be with us. We wish you guys the best in relaunching your practices and your companies. And if you need anything, please reach out. We will see you next week at 2 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.